Start out, I just want to define metabolism. Like I said, this term has been thrown around so much within the health and fitness industry that I think sometimes people don't really even understand what it is. And this is a Mayo Clinic's definition. I think it puts it really in layman's terms and really defines what's happening. It's basically converting anything you eat or drink into energy output. So you guys know there's different types of fuel systems in the body. We burn fat, we burn carbohydrate. At some level we burn muscle tissue if we're not careful to provide energy to function throughout the day. And so our food and our intake predicts the level of energy that we have to expend and the fuel that we have to continue us on a healthy progression of performance. So first I want to just talk about factors that dictate metabolic performance. And we all like to just think we can't lose weight because we have just been blessed with this slow metabolism. But there are a lot of different factors that can play into what can really impact our metabolic performance. So first is body type. I mean, believe it or not, there is a genetic element to metabolism. Some of us were just blessed with a slow metabolism, and others of us, we all know that person, whether it's a family member or a friend that can eat whatever they want, whenever they want, and they never gain an ounce. That is a reality. And we all wish we were that person, and some people in this room have that more than others, but at the end of the day, there is a genetic body type impact on metabolism. So these are the three body types in terms of characteristics. The first is that long and lean, somebody that just can't really pack on a lot of weight, even muscle or fat. They just don't have either of those, and that's the ectomorph. So that's the tall, wanky body type. Then you've got the endomorph, that's the one on the far right. They're just the big bone, the thicker individual. So genetically, they're just going to have a preponderance of body fat. And then the middle is the people that both pack on body fat and muscle tissue. That's the mesomorph. Okay, so whatever type of weight they gain, they kind of create a healthy proportion of both of those. So what's been really interesting for me as I've gone through this process with clients is there is a very specific pattern there. When somebody walks in my office, I can look at them and know that person can handle more protein, more fat, that person's going to be able to handle more carbohydrate. It's just about where they're holding their weight. So as you guys look at that and can kind of categorize yourself, unfortunately that just never changes. You just have that structure and that's your body, and you have to eat for that body type. You have to understand your body. So social comparison becomes a problem. You know, when you ask a friend, ooh, what are you doing? I want to do that. Right? It's not going to necessarily work for you. You have to choose a plan and a process that works for your body. And that's why the cookie cutter type programs where every female's on 1,200 calories, every male's on 1,500 calories, or 40, 40, 20, that's not going to work for everyone. A lot of people need 50, 60% carbohydrates. A lot of people need 50, 60% protein. So you really need to understand your body type when it comes to metabolic performance. Body size and body composition. Your resting metabolic rate, okay, the number of calories you burn at resting state, is predicted by surface area of your body. So if you have two people that weigh the same thing and one's taller than the other, the taller person is going to burn more calories at rest. They have a greater surface area. They have more cells that are active. Okay? The same thing goes for weight. If you have two people that are 5'5", the person that weighs more is going to have a higher resting metabolic rate. Same goes for you personally. At 120 and at 150, your resting metabolism will be higher at 150. So believe it or not, a higher metabolic rate doesn't mean you're more fit. It just means you have greater surface area, right? So the same thing goes for percentage of fat. If I have a 5'5" female, 150 pounds, and one of them's 20% body fat and one of them's 40% body fat, the more fat-free mass you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate. Okay, so the leaner you are at the same build and the same weight, the higher your resting metabolic rate. Does that make sense? right? So body composition and body size predict metabolism. So as you lean out, if you're the same height, right, and the same weight, you weigh 150, but you're 20% body fat, you weigh 150 and you're 40% body fat, you're going to be more metabolically efficient because you have more muscle cells. Muscle cells are active, fat cells are dormant. So if you can get more muscle cells in your body, then you can have a more active performance of your metabolism. Age and gender. Okay? After 30, we start to lose muscle mass just through the aging process. There's nothing we can do about it. Right? But you guys that have done an in-body with me and you've looked at your body composition and we've talked about the benefits of building lean muscle, because we know it's going to start to trickle off. The more cushion we can create there, right, the more opportunity we have to offset the aging process of losing muscle. So if you can build a good foundation of muscle mass, then even if you trickle a little off as you get older, you still have good active muscle cells that are working in your favor. Okay, men, yes, we hate you. You have inevitably more fat-free mass than a woman. So men are typically going to have a higher resting metabolic rate. Now, I'm sure you can find a woman out there that trumps a man in resting metabolism. I know there's always those exceptions. But for the most part, men are going to be more metabolically active than women are because they have more muscle mass. This is the big one, and this is really kind of where we're going to focus a lot of our attention today, history of dieting. Every time we diet, we put ourselves at greater and greater risk to slow our metabolism if it's not done the right way. A very low calorie VLC diet, which is 500 or less calories, has been shown to suppress your metabolism up to 40% in as little as a month. Okay, now not a lot of you guys have gone in that direction that I know of, but even 1,000 calories, 900 calories over an extended period of time is going to create an adaptation such that your metabolism slows to that energy intake. Our bodies are built to survive. As you start feeding it less, your body's going to become more and more efficient on less and less calories. Right? So we slow our metabolic processes. Your resting metabolism slows down to meet the level of intake it's getting. And then eventually you will plateau. And every time you go through that process, your body suppresses that metabolism more and more. And when you start eating back again, you have less opportunity to burn fat because the first kind of weight you're going to gain is body fat because your body wants to survive. So when it goes into that suppression and you start feeding it again, because you can't eat 500 calories forever, eventually you're going to go back to baseline intake of 1,800 calories. And if you don't do it smartly and let your metabolism adapt back up to that intake, we see as much as a 300% increase in fat gain. Right? That's the yo-yo. That's the suppress, 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 restrict, eat again, gain all your weight back and more each time. You're overshooting that previous body fat level every time you diet and come back to normal baseline intake. So the cycle looks like this. Right? If we start at the top of that circle, we're overweight, we're frustrated, we got to do something about it, we start dieting. We decrease our caloric intake, our body responds. That's the famine response. So we lose muscle, potentially some body fat, but a lot of times just muscle if we're not doing it the right way. Our resting metabolic rate reduces to meet that decreased calorie intake, and we see an increase in fat storage because our metabolic rate is lowered and we start to fall off the wagon. Right? As we fall off the wagon, we start eating again, a lot of times in a binge type response because we've been starving ourselves. So it's just reality, and we regain all that weight, a lot of times in the form of fat. And because we have a reduced metabolic rate, we end up overshooting that previous body fat level. And thus we get frustrated again, and we go back to the diet, and then, right, that's how the cycle continues. Okay, so just to recap that, 1, as you diet, and the more restrictive and the more drastic, and a lot of times that also comes with training more, right? We start dieting and we start training more, so the deficit is even greater, right? Think Biggest Loser, they're eating 1,000 calories a day, training 2 and 3 hours a day. So their energy expenditure and the deficit that they're creating is drastic. Decreased metabolic rate, right? Fat storage. Okay, we all have a point of diminishing return. We hit a set point. Our bodies need a level of body fat. So as we start to drop below that, your body's going to say, no, I can't let go of any more body fat because I need this for survival. That's the plateau, that's the bottom, that's the point at which you start to say, I'm in survival mode. Then we start to increase calories too quickly, even binging or overeating, and our metabolic rate has not yet adapted to that increased intake, and body fat becomes the preferable gain. I'm going to stop there if there's questions. I know that's like a lot of information, and I'm on that yo-yo process. Does anybody have any? We can answer questions at the end too, but no? Okay.
Okay, I do it.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So if you did do that in your background where you're 500 calories, whatever, for extended times, if you start training in the right way, can you switch that, or is it a...
Absolutely. It is a
'Cause, I mean,
reversible
you've
process.
done
So
that, and I'm
people talk about metabolic damage. You don't damage your metabolism. You don't kill your metabolism. It just suppresses, and it can just as easily rebound. So if you've done that, you can repair it, but it takes time.
Yeah.
You know, and often it's as many weeks as you've suppressed it is as many weeks as it's going to take to bring it back. So people that have done this for years, it could take years to repair it. You have to be patient, and that's the hard part is you don't realize, okay, I've done this, well now I want to fix it. It's not a quick, okay, let's just start eating again. It's going to be, all right, let's eat 1,000 calories, let's eat 1,100, let's eat 1,200, and you're probably going to gain some weight. You know, I mean, as you increase, you'll see gain, but until you do that, you're never going to allow your body to burn fat again. You have to give it the opportunity to build the metabolism back up and deal with a little bit of that weight gain. But until you do that, you'll never give your body a chance to burn fat.
I think, I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we have a perfect example of that. Suzanne, if you want to share it, I think you're a perfect example of what Tiffany's talking about.
Oh gosh, where to start? Yeah, because I'm certainly somebody who's, I think I even did that 500 calorie diet, gosh, for quite a while. Same vicious cycle, completely suppressing the diet, you lose weight, but then you eat one thing and you gain it all back. So, I mean, I can low carb, no carb, you know, low cal, low fat. I mean, I've tried it all. So when I started here with Tiffany, and I probably gained a few back. I've sort of fallen off the wagon. But
Frauds here.
yeah, it was like a psychiatrist couch in there with us sometimes. It's like I don't understand because I always wanted to talk about how it was working better for someone else. So it was trial and error, and it was adjusting and moving until we got it right. So, but eating everything, the full spectrum of foods are available to me.
And I think the hard part is when you make big changes. You know, you enroll in a new plan and you pay this money and you don't see immediate results, you immediately just assume it's not working. But, you know, our belief is not a quick fix, and it's hard to teach people to be patient about weight loss because you're used to, you start a program, they cut all your carbs, they cut all your calories, and you start losing weight on day one, and that's what we're competing with, that mentality. But we know the long-term reality of being able to sustain that, and I don't want to take anybody's money knowing they're not going to get long-term results. But it's a hard sell sometimes. Yeah, Barbara.
Yeah, and a few slides before you were talking about how the muscle, like as you reach 30 and then afterwards that you're, you know, it's harder to build the muscle, you start to lose the muscle. How does that, what about your metabolism and age? Does that, and sorry, I was a few minutes late, so I might have missed that.
No,
but
that's fine.
is that, how does your metabolism change as your age changes also?
That is the direct correlation.
That's it,
So,
okay.
so the metabolism is related to the muscle.
Okay.
So as you lose the muscle, you're slowing your metabolism. So the age is really directly related to the muscle loss, and then the muscle loss is what's predicting the metabolism.
And that's the metabolic rate you're talking about.
Correct.
So as you get older, it lowers.
Correct,
regardless
based
of-
on loss of muscle.
Okay, got it.
So we've talked about the factors that actually predict and impact metabolism. So now I'm sure what you guys are thinking was, okay, how the heck do I maximize this? This is what I came for. I want to know how to get and burn as much fat as possible. So we're going to shift gears into talking about how you can set your metabolism up to be most effective and perform at the highest level long term. First of all, it's about knowing your numbers. And we've touched a little bit on that idea of social comparison, and I'll just eat what they're eating and it'll work for me. It's not that simple, unfortunately, and I wish it was, because then my job would be a lot easier, because I just make one plan and give it to everybody. Carbs, fats, and proteins, which is how we set up our plans. We don't count calories. We don't look at percentages of carbs, fats, and proteins, but we actually look at the number of grams of each of those macronutrients that's right for you. Okay, and believe me, it can be as small as a 10-gram tweak. I've had clients completely stalled out and we drop something 10 grams and they start moving again. A very intricate process in terms of how many carbs, fats, and proteins are going to work for your level of fitness, for your metabolic rate, for your stress, for the types of foods that you like and that are going to work for you long term. So just having that macronutrient profile. And there's tons of calculators out there on the internet that'll give you a general idea. You can put in your activity level. You know, so if it's not something where you're ready to engage in a long-term program, you could get an idea, but working with somebody obviously is going to be a lot more customized to you. And then total daily energy expenditure. That's that resting metabolic rate. Okay, so how many calories you burning sitting in a chair all day, plus how many calories you burning during physical activity. Okay, and also if you have an active job, like Stu's on his feet all day. We had him wear a step tracker one day. You know, he's just moving, as opposed to somebody that's sitting at a desk all day. They also have to factor in how sedentary they are just in their daily tasks. But exercise is also a huge piece of that. If you're training for a half marathon or a marathon, you're training 2-3 hours a day, or you're doing an hour of walking, then your total daily energy expenditure is going to be different. So you have to decide how much of a deficit you're creating, and that's going to help you kind of understand how much food you need to be eating. Percent body fat. We talked about how fat-free mass, or muscle, bone, organs, that's all fat-free mass. Our fat-free mass burns more calories than fat mass. So knowing what your body composition is and maximizing that muscle to fat ratio is going to improve your metabolism. So if you're holding on to a lot of body fat, you're slowing your metabolic rate. So training efficiently and eating appropriately for your body to shed body fat and increase muscle is going to improve your metabolism. This is kind of hard to see, but I'm going to talk us through it. Okay, so this is just a little visual depiction of how carbohydrates, or really any food, impacts your blood sugar and your potential for fat storage. So this is our little friend, couch potato, sitting up here watching the boob tube, right? She eats carbohydrates, fruits, starches, sugars, any carbohydrate-rich food. It goes into her bloodstream. Anything we eat impacts blood sugar. The more simple the sugar, honey, candy, Snicker bar, whatever, that's going to create a more drastic impact on blood sugar. But even something like a nice balanced meal of brown rice and veggies and chicken creates an increase in blood sugar. As our blood sugar increases, our pancreas releases insulin. Insulin's job is to regulate blood sugar. So the higher that blood sugar spike, the more insulin gets dumped to try to regulate it. Okay? Insulin pushes blood sugar or glycogen into our liver and our muscles first, so they can be used for activity. If those storage tanks are full, so in our cylinder here, we've got liver and muscle tissue. That's the first choice. That's insulin's first choice. If those tanks are full, it pushes it into fat. That's when carbohydrates create fat storage. That's when they get a bad rap, right? Because carbs can lead to fat storage. But the only time that's going to happen is if you're eating it in such excess and in such lack of activity that there's no room in your muscle or glycogen for it to go. You don't just eat a carb and store fat, right? So if you eat it in the right way, in the right proportions, and at the right times, it's going to benefit you because it's going to be used for physical activity. It's going to be used for mental and cognitive function. It's going to be used to rebuild and recover muscle cells. But if you're not smart about it and you overload it and you eat it in excess and you eat it at your most inactive times a day where muscle and liver stores are not depleted and there's nowhere for insulin to help to push it and regulate it, it will get stored as fat. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to talk through that a little bit. How do you minimize that effect? One is timing your meals. Right? We talk a lot about that, if you guys have worked with me on coaching at all, is understanding when your body can handle those higher glycemic meals. Right? When is your glycogen most depleted? For most people, it's first thing in the morning because you fasted for 8 to 12 hours since dinner, and even through sleep we're burning calories. So at that first meal, that's why a lot of people say breakfast should be your biggest meal, right? Because you're coming out of a fast and you have room to put all that glycogen or carbohydrate. The second thing is giving spacing between meals. That idea of eating every couple of hours, I'm not saying it's wrong, but it depends on how big those meals are. If I eat a huge pasta meal every 2 hours, my glycogen tanks are full. Where is the rest of that going? If I'm eating small little nibble meals every 2 hours, maybe I can get away with that. Right? Or if I'm eating a protein shake and then 2 hours later I'm eating something more moderate again, then I'm never filling up the glycogen stores. But if I eat big meals every 2 hours, there will be some potential for fat storage because you haven't burned through the glycogen you just ate. Fortify your workouts with your higher carb meals. What I mean is pre and post. Right? Pre, because you're going to use that glycogen to get you through the workout. The carbs, when I say glycogen, I'm talking about carbs. After the workout, because you've just depleted a bunch of glycogen and you have somewhere to put it. So if you're craving a Pop-Tart, best time to have it is right after you work out. Okay? Or we always say, you know, if you want to drink a glass of wine, do it right before you're going to work out. Because then you can use it for your workout. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, ideally, your highest carb meals should be around your workout. That doesn't always work for people. Yeah, Billy?
So those of us who work out early in the morning, I hate eating before I work out. How does that help
Sure.
or hinder your metabolic burn?
Well, here's my take on that, because I'm the same way. I work out at 5 a.m., 5:30, so I'm not going to sit down to a big carb meal right before I work out. The only reason that you need the carbs pre-workout is one, because you can perform at a higher level through that workout because you have something in the tank,
Yep.
right? So you don't bonk out mid-workout, thus your caloric expenditure is higher, right? The harder we can train in a workout, the more calories we burn. If you overdo it though, you're blocking your body's potential to burn fat because its first choice is carbs. So if I eat a huge carbohydrate meal right before I train, then I'm going to use the carbs first. But what we want to be careful of is burning muscle tissue. So if you train fasted and you don't supplement with some kind of an amino acid, like a branch chain amino acid that's saving your muscle tissue, then you're going to put your muscle at risk because you're fasted, you've come off of no food since dinner, and you train for an hour potentially, and what happens to your muscle? Because that's going to be what gets burned after the carbs are gone. Right? So a little something, I always tell people, even if it's half a protein bar, a small Greek yogurt, a little bit of orange juice with protein powder in it, just enough to get you through the workout if you're going to train super early or do your branch chains. That's a good question though, because there's science about training fasted will promote fat burning. I mean, there's no doubt about it because you don't have any carbs to burn. But the risk is your muscle. So if you can offset that, then it's okay to train without food.
Is there a timing element when you finish your workout? Like how much time do you have when you finish that to get those post carbs in to make maximize them? Is there a window on that? Does
The
it matter?
carbs, no. Protein, you really need fairly immediate. I'd say there's controversy there, but I'd say within the hour, you need to get some good protein for recovery, so you don't break down muscle tissue. But with the carbs, there's not really a time frame there, because your stores will just get more and more depleted the longer you wait.
Good protein.
Yeah, just protein.
I have a question.
Sure.
For the branch chains, do you do that? Is it better to do it pre-workout, during your workout, or after your workout?
From the fasted argument,
Uh-huh.
during or before, because
And
you
what's
need
considered
it.
fasting? Like, is there a time frame that's
That would be the
considered-
only time you'd be fasting is if you're getting up out of bed
Okay.
and working out. Like if you've been eating for 3 hours, it's not
That's not
fasting.
fasting. Okay.
But if you're not fasting, would you have amino acids after?
If you're not fasting, it doesn't really matter because it's not gonna, like, you're gonna benefit from those from a recovery standpoint. So if you're just training and you want to supplement with the branch chain amino acids, you could do it after. Your muscle's still gonna accept that for recovery. But if you're looking at offsetting catabolism or muscle loss, you need to have it in before or during, because that's when you're using the muscle. Okay, so we talked about time and we talked about fortifying your workouts. And then the last is just the meal balance, right? So if you sit down to a big bowl of fruit, pasta, anything that's carbohydrate rich, and the more simple, again, the greater the spike, and you don't have protein and fat to help balance how it impacts your blood sugar, you're gonna have a greater potential for that fat storage, right? Because our metabolism is moderated and slowed, and the blood sugar spike moderated if we have some fat and protein, because those two nutrients take longer for our body to break down. So sitting down to a carb-only meal is gonna reflect a greater potential for insulin dump and fat storage than if you have a good balanced meal. So just always think about what's my fat, what's my carb, what's my protein, right? Because then you know your body's gonna have all those nutrients working together. So I say to people, if you want a banana, it's fine, but put it with some peanut butter. And if you want an apple, have a string cheese, right? Just so you're never just sitting down to just straight sugar, whether it's a simple sugar or a complex. Same idea. Okay. And of course, a brown rice, a whole grain pasta, a whole wheat bread, that takes your body longer to process and break down than a simple sugar, right? Because it goes immediately into your bloodstream because you don't have to break it down. Simple means one molecule. It goes in, you use it. Right? That's why right before a fitness event you do Gatorade or an orange or a banana, because you eat it and you immediately have that energy available. Something more complex takes more time to break down.